Our next speaker is Dr. Bill Tyler. Dr. Tyler is a professor of biology at Indian River State College. He teaches a variety of courses, including general biology, ecology, oceanography, marine biology, and seminar courses, and he helps develop the college's 4-year bachelor's program in molecular biology and biotechnology. Prior to academic life, he was the science director at Sea Camp Association in Big Pine Key, Florida. In addition to his current academic responsibilities, he is also a co-principal investigator in the Florida Center for Ocean Science Education Excellence to train and pre-service science teachers and educate the public about ocean sciences.
Well, what I've been asked to do is tell you a little bit about what I've done over the past, 32 years or so as a marine biologist and developing scientist to the position I've got now. But the most important thing, I think, to remember is that this is not about me so much, but it's about what somebody might be able to think about themselves doing in science, not just marine science necessarily, but science in general. And since the audience is a sort of a STEM group, then a lot of you probably hopefully thought about this. But let me see if I can move my slides forward here. Yeah. So, and feel free to holler out questions, I guess, as we go through. But first off, obviously, everybody here, including myself, but I'm sure everybody out there is interested in just science and hopefully nature in general. I'm an outdoor kind of guy, and when I grew up, I was, part of Boy Scouts where I went out and did a lot of camping. I lived near, lived at the beach. I'm actually from Titusville. One of the things I luckily learned how to do very early on is learn how to scuba dive. I've always been interested in science, but scuba diving was huge in fostering that, and that came a lot from inspirational characters. Okay, way back, I see a lot of you guys scuba dive too, and I think it's a great way to get involved in the marine sciences. But if you're not a scuba diver or a strong swimmer, just being outside in the field, and what I mean by that, outdoors in the woods, or the salt marshes, or the mangrove forest, just be curious about your surroundings. I think is really, really important. But one of my inspirations, I'm showing my age here, is Jacques Cousteau. And back in the 60s and 70s, this was a show that came on every Sunday evening, and there was a couple other nature shows. Now we have whole channels of shows, that are devoted to nature and wildlife and whatnot. The Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, and though Jacques Cousteau is a little different because there was such a limited amount of resources back in those days. He was a character that everybody knew. Now, with so many different outlets for media and whatnot, there are a few folks that have sort of stood out. One, of course, is the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, and there's also Jeff Corwin, who runs a show on Animal Planet. And these are just a couple of folks that I have seen recently that can sort of inspire young people into becoming interested in nature. They have great stories to tell, and they do so in a way that's really exciting and fun. So that inspiration is really important as you go forward and you sort of model your life. Or if I had things to do, if I did things differently, I think I'd want to be a wildlife photographer and cinematographer, with looking at watching shows like Frozen Planet and those kinds of things. Anyway, one of the biggest things you can do to move through this is, does he ever watch these shows now? Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, I've been very busy lately, but I've DVR'd all the episodes of Frozen Planet, which I now hope to start wading through. But Blue Planet, or what is it, Planet Ocean, or I can't remember the names of all the shows that I've been watching. It's wonderful stuff. Anyway, the education, of course, is really important. You guys are in high school, just getting out of high school. Hopefully, because you're interested, you have actually been involved in a lot of science classes and math classes, and sort of the next step of the way is, what are you going to do in college? And one of the things I want to make sure that you understand is you don't have to go to the biggest, most expensive college or university in the world to start your path. I started out at my local university, University of Central Florida, up in Orlando, Florida, and from there I got a good solid background. And most universities these days and colleges like Indian River State College, not that I'm trying to plug this or anything, but we give in all of these universities give a good solid fundamental background in biology, and that's really what you need to start with. And then if you are thinking about being in science, you should plan on graduate school. You don't have to, but to really move up and to increase your salary and whatnot as time goes on, which might be a consideration, then you ought to think about graduate school, getting a master's degree, or eventually a PhD. Luckily, I was able to go to University of South Alabama, not too close to home, but not too far away. Again, my folks lived in Titusville. And then I had an opportunity to go to the University of Hawaii, which was a big jump, of course, and something that I've certainly never regretted going. It was a wonderful place, especially for the kinds of things I was interested in studying, which was coral reef biology, coral reef fishes particularly. So I can call myself sort of an ichthyologist and a behavioral ecologist of fishes, if you will. A lot of people go for a master's only, go out into the workforce, work in labs, work in the field, work for the government, what have you, and you may only need a bachelor's even to do some of that. But again, this is an academic area, so you're always encouraged to move up the ladder in terms of your academic credentials. So a master's degree is a really good thing to think about, and if you have the opportunity and the desire, a PhD or a doctorate is very helpful to becoming, I guess, respected, and also it usually increases your salary. What a lot of folks do is they move on to a postdoctoral research position of some sort, which basically, if you take a look at medical doctors, people are familiar with medical doctors. Medical doctors go to school in med school. That's after they get their bachelor's degree, and then become a quote-unquote doctor. All right. Many of those doctors then go specialize and go a residency. So that's sort of like what a postdoc does, is a residency in someone else's lab, and they learn even more how to do science. I see somebody here is actually from Rhode Island, a beautiful state. I wasn't real crazy about the weather in the winter because I moved from Hawaii to Rhode Island in December, so I don't necessarily recommend that, but it was still a good experience for sure. So the key thing, I guess, before we move on, is that think broadly. You don't just focus on marine biology. If you're interested in marine biology, don't just focus on geology. Our previous speaker was looking at sedimentary rocks and whatnot. You don't really realize what, in fact, you're actually able to do until you start going through this process, because as a young person, you just don't know what the opportunities are, really. So let's go ahead and move on a little bit. So I see someone says they have a family of David Hawaiians. Excellent. Maybe a good opportunity to go out there and visit, if nothing else. Highly recommend it. All right, as a young person going into college, or even you have this opportunity even while in high school, is to get involved in research. It's one of the things I did is I had a lot of field-oriented classes as well as lab classes as part of my undergraduate degree for my bachelor's degree. But I also had the opportunity to volunteer at some research institutes. One that I volunteered at was the Hub SeaWorld Research Institute. Again, I'm from Florida. I was going to a school in Orlando. So we looked at manatee behavior. I volunteered for this group of Hub SeaWorld to look at manatee behavior. There's a lot of organizations out there around your area, perhaps, that might be looking for volunteers. We have a number around Fort Pierce area that a lot of our students, not just college students, but even high school students, that have volunteered to get an idea of what research is about. And the earlier you get into that, the sooner you get into the idea that, hey, this is great, or, oh, this is horrible, I hate doing it. So if that's the case, get out while you can, but it sparks that interest, and it's good to know what you don't like. That may be more important sometimes than finding out what you do like. So, but get involved. Volunteer programs and stuff is really a good way to sort of get your feet wet, if you will. Now, going through your undergraduate courses, usually takes approximately 4 years or so, and after that, take your classes, take your labs, maybe do some volunteer work. You can also volunteer, by the way, in professors' labs at the university or college that you're going to if they have a research program there. Once you go into graduate school, you are focusing much more on research and teaching, depending on what kind of opportunities are available to you. One thing that's really nice in science, particularly biology and chemistry, perhaps physics as well, I'm not so sure about math so much, but that is what possibly as well, is that you can get jobs at the university in terms of, in the form of teaching assistances and research assistances, where you can get paid while you're going to graduate school. You'll have a job. It's a part-time job. Teaching labs is what I did. Later on in my research career, or my graduate school career, I became a research assistant, so I worked for a professor who had grant money. And you can also find a lot of times odd jobs in your field, particularly in field work. I was a field biologist, and so I didn't mind going out, but you can also might find this in the lab as well. So what I'm saying is it's possible to pay for your work, pay for your schooling as you go through it. Okay? Are you only going to go over marine biology? Actually, I'm going over what scientists in general go through. Okay, so it's not just marine biology; it's all sciences, be it field work or laboratory work. You sort of do the same kinds of things, just in a different setting. So the nice thing about grad school is you make a lot of friends, and again, you work hard, you have a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. You don't want to go into graduate school unless you love what you're doing. I want to reiterate what the previous speaker, Chris, had talked about. You got to love what you do. It's too hard of work not to, and the rewards are more internal, a satisfaction and a job well done than monetary, though you do make a decent living. What type of animals do I work with? Actually, I've worked with a number of different animals. I've worked mostly with fishes, actually, this next slide here, when I was my master's degree, I worked on coral reef fishes for my master's degree. And the neat thing about that opportunity, this is at University of South Alabama at USA in Mobile, Alabama, is I got to work with a number of folks from different organizations. I work with them from the National Marine Fisheries Service as well as Harbor Branch Oceanographic. If you're not familiar with Harbor Branch, they're located here in Fort Pierce, and they're famous for their underwater submersibles. Here's one shown in the picture here, the Johnson Sea Link. So part of my research allowed me to go down in Johnson Sea Link, though I'll be honest, I did very little actual diving in the submersible, except for one time, which was a real highlight of my life. But I took data from those people that had gone down there, collected it. I did have a chance to go out on the Oregon 2, which is the research vessel, the ship over here as well, and look at the commercially important fishes of the Florida Middle Grounds off of the western coast of Florida, as you can see where the arrow points up in here. What I mean by commercially important fish, I'm talking about grouper and snapper and things of that nature. So that was one aspect. So I like fish, and I like big fish that you can eat in a lot of ways. Okay, what machine's down there? Well, this is a Johnson Sea Link submersible. That's somewhere that they're still using for research. Well, they're not using. They sort of retired it from research, but now it's gone commercial. But there's a big bubble here that you can sit in and then peer out over the bottom or just in the water column and all. And they actually have featured this submersible a number of shows on Discovery Channel, the Science Channel, Animal Planet, those kinds of things. So I noticed in one comment, that's cool. That is true. It's really cool, and that's what some of the opportunities that you get to do while you're in science are unlike anything you can do as a normal quote-unquote private citizen and stuff. When I was doing my doctorate in Hawaii, at the University of Hawaii, they have here's the island of Oahu, and I don't know if you can see my pointer here, but over here is where Honolulu is on this side of the island. back on the what we call the windward side of the island, you can see this little note here, Coconut Island in Kaneohe Bay. If you've seen popular movies like 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, whatever her name is, Drew Barrymore, I think, yes. That was filmed actually in Kaneohe Bay, in the north part of the bay. In the south part of the bay is where Coconut Island is, and this photo down here at the bottom right is a picture of the Marine Lab on Coconut Island. I lived there for 8 years as a graduate student assistant, where I taught as well as I did research as a research assistant. These are the fish that I used to work on. What we call in Florida, they're sergeant majors. There we call them Hawaiian sergeants, but they're very similar. And this is a male and female in the process of spawning eggs, and you can see all this purple stuff on top of this dead coral. That's the egg mass. So these guys can spawn thousands and thousands of eggs, and the males will defend them until they hatch in about 4 or 5 days. Anyway, again, gives you an opportunity to do lots of research. I spent most of my research underwater on scuba, watching these fish do what they do underwater. After you get your doctorate, as I mentioned before, you often go for what we call a postdoctoral research position. In this case, I flew out in December going from Hawaii in the middle of December to University of Rhode Island, where I started working on the downstream migration of Atlantic salmon. And here are a couple of examples of salmon at different stages in their life history. The small one on top is what we call a par salmon, which is a juvenile that lives up in the freshwater rivers of New England area, and also all the way around to Scotland and Great Britain. This bottom picture could be the same fish a few months later and undergone a transformation which we call smoltification, which allows them to move downstream from their freshwater environment, make the transition to a saltwater environment where adult Atlantic salmon become an adult, and adult Atlantic salmon live out in the ocean, and they grow up there until they get to a point where they need to reproduce, and then they move back upstream to their natal or their original hatching site or birthplace, if you will. And some of my work involved hatcheries. This is a U.S. Fish and Wildlife funded hatchery up in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. And this is our field site where we released a lot of the fish and followed their downstream migration. This is a winter picture of Beaver River in Rhode Island, a lovely little place, lovely little field site that I was able to go to and work at. Other opportunities that you don't really hear about. Those are parts of being in the academic world. A lot of opportunities come up while you're in this field. One particular one that was exciting for myself was some travel opportunities. I did a number of travel opportunities while I was at the University of Hawaii to the different Hawaiian islands to do research either with my colleagues on Hawaiian forest birds on the Big Island or coral damage after hurricane on the island of Kauai. So the nice thing about being in an academic setting is the variety of experiences you might have. Yeah, we have a hand raised here. Let's see. So go ahead and type in your question if you have a question. The last one I have is a whoops type of thing. Yeah, go ahead and type in your question, whoever raised your hand, and I'll try to answer it. Let's see here. Okay. Have you gotten decompression sickness while diving? Me, personally, no. I typically spend my time in shallow water. In fact, most of the marine life is in shallow water. Though I have some friends that actually do dive very deep, and I've had a couple of friends who have gotten decompression sickness, also known as the bends, a couple times. And believe me, it's not fun. Is it hard to learn to dive? No, but I do recommend that you don't do it with friends. You go to a dive shop or some legitimate place to learn how to dive from a professional dive instructor. Much safer that way. Let's see. Have you ever encountered a large shark? Actually, when I was in Kaneohe Bay, to go back a slide or two, out here in Kaneohe Bay, all around the island and the entire bay, hammerhead sharks come in. So at one of my study sites, which is in the north part of the bay here, I would normally be diving, especially in the spring and summer, and see large, 8, 9, 10-foot hammerhead sharks that would come in on a regular basis. The nice thing about the hammerheads in Kaneohe Bay at that time, when they come in that time of year, is they're not interested in eating so much as they're interested in mating. So they weren't interested in divers. But I've seen a lot of sharks, and frankly, most sharks are not harmful at all. They're maybe a little scary given their size, but sometimes I've even had to get out of the water when I've seen tiger sharks. But generally, they're just sort of interesting. I've actually dove in the water several times to watch a shark rather than trying to get out of the water, just because of my interest in it. So very interesting critters. I've always enjoyed marine life. Absolutely. Again, scuba helps a lot to observe those kinds of things. All kinds of marine life, not just fish. Though I've never been bitten, to be quite honest with you. Anyway, let's see. I was thinking about being a marine biologist because it seems fun and educational, which is true. Always wondered about how do they get paid. Let me hold off on that, and I'll talk about that at the very end. But let me continue on about the travel opportunities. If I forget to do that, let's see. I got lots of. Let me go ahead and finish this up. We're almost done here, I think. So, and then I'll open up for questions. One thing that people don't realize in science is the ability to travel. And I've been able to, one of my favorite times was going out to American Samoa to investigate hurricane damage in the American Samoas. And a number of friends of mine, many of them have many travel opportunities all over the Pacific, all over the world. You're still able to do that. And you often don't hear about it. That's an advantage of being a scientist, particularly a field scientist, because you get to have a lot of fun at outside in exotic places. Other things that you do as a scientist is go to scientific meetings. In addition to doing your research, and this could be in the lab or it could be in the field, but the fun part of this is you go to meetings and present your data and you meet with colleagues. It's an enormous amount of fun. There's social aspects of science. Again, the social aspects of science are not something that the public realizes that is so enjoyable about being a scientist. You get to talk to people that are truly interested in what you are doing. You are truly interested in what they are doing. It's a great set of people and colleagues to meet that you will develop over your years in school, all the way from undergraduate to graduate school. I still keep in close contact with a number of colleagues, number of friends that I have met over the years as graduate students. In fact, I'm getting ready to hopefully work with an old graduate student buddy of mine down in the Keys at some point. Teaching opportunities. And again, a lot of people don't realize there's a number of teaching opportunities. You can always teach high school, though you have, and you certainly have to have the personality to teach. It takes a special personality to teach. You have to like people. You have to enjoy your subject. You have to be enthusiastic. One of the things that I did, again, being a field biologist and marine biologist, is I became science director at Sea Camp, also known as Newfound Harbor Marine Institute down in the Florida Keys. Here is where Sea Camp was located on Big Pine Key. It's a marine environmental science education center where we bring student groups from elementary to college level groups down for visits of a couple of days to a week or so to go out and, again, go out of the field, put students in the field to teach them about the marine environment. In this particular case, since this is a marine environmental science education center, we taught them about the marine environment, going out to coral reefs, going out to mangrove forests, seagrass beds, all kinds of things off of Big Pine Key. Very, very lovely experience and all. Here, let me, and then, of course, I teach at the college, which you teach a whole range of teaching. And again, it's something that you have to do, but you have to enjoy doing it. Like the previous speaker, I love coming to classes and teaching my students at least almost every day. Not every day do I enjoy coming to work, but I do so a lot. Here's my ecology students out here looking at fire ant territorial behavior here. There's a couple of shots of me giving a lecture and showing a Bahamian starfish out at a study abroad thing on a cruise ship that we went to last year. So again, there's all kinds of fun opportunities in addition to just lecturing in classes and teaching labs.